My name is Laura Nova, and we're here on the Lower East Side where I live and work, sitting in my studio. And a lot of what I live and work is about care as I um, very involved in my community and participate in things around my studio building, the community garden, library, community centers, all the life along the river and the ecology, the trees, and walking and running. My practice and my teaching overlap. A lot of what I do is collaborate with students, with my neighbors, and we do participatory workshops, and we learn sometimes crafts and skills, also learning about our environment. And in these conversations, we tell stories and we share um, things about, how we sustain and take care of each other. And this practice is really how we learn from each other. So while I'm an educator, I guess I'm also a student, and there's an exchange of knowledge and stories, um, and we make art together. My practice has always been focused not just in care, but on my, where I live and my local community. And when I first moved to the Lower East Side, I wanted to get to know my neighbors, and that um, taking walks with my neighbors and learning about their stories and places and experiences that were important to them was how I guess I got started. I was looking for experts to share their knowledge with me, so I could become part of the community here. And it's really, in most of my projects begin with some sort of aspect of community care. As I, you know, whether that's taking care of the trees on my street, um, or dealing with rising tides and environmental issues, dealing with flooding, but also one of the big things about my neighborhood is it's a naturally occurring retirement community, also known as a NORC. These are pockets of neighborhoods where there's usually a large amount of older adults that, in most cases, have aged in place. So 25% of my neighbors are over the age of 65. So it's always been part of my practice, not just in the sense they were taking care of me, and we started a walking group. So I guess there was like a mutual care as we were taking care of our health, and actually, being social is a big part of being careful. One of my big efforts in the work that I do is that I don't just work. I don't just collaborate with my older neighbors. It's an intergenerational experience, and so that because we're all going to be older, so it's a mutual care and an exchange. So it's not always about how we can take care of elders. It's also their shared perspective, experiences that also come back to younger generations too. Leading a creative life, it doesn't matter what age you are, and I think it brings people together with joy and celebration. I think a lot of the work that I do enables people to share their stories and have their voices heard, when often these populations are unseen, invisible, and nobody pays any attention to them. So I think it's these creative projects are tools, I guess, and but also celebrations and joyful experiences that we all get to participate in. A lot of the work that I do exists in the street or in a park, public park or library or public food market. These spaces are, the extensions of our homes when we live in New York City. In urban spaces, like our apartments are small. So, these are our living rooms and our extended kitchens. I would say these places where I connect and create this work. Um, and a lot of the work that I do also, because I'm part of a community, I kind of design a project around maybe a challenge, or yeah, a conflict, a tension that might exist, and the projects really connect and gather people together. So the first public project that I did when I moved to New York City, I joined a running club, and I was raising money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and it was part of taking care of my own health and also fighting cancer, and got really involved in the running community. And um, there's another track club called the Achilles Track Club, which is for disabled athletes, and so I started volunteering and working with that track club, and we designed a project connected to a running race that they sponsored. It was called the Crescendo Project. And what we did was we attached RFID tags to the runners, a select group of Achilles Track Club runners, for when they crossed the finish line at this race, it sang their names in the melody of Handel's Hallelujah. And this was really the start of, really celebrating community and using the art as not just a spectacle, but a way to connect and gather and celebrate the community, and and their abilities. From there, I kept running and walking. And so in my own community, running with my neighbors might, be a little bit too rigorous. So we started a walking group. And so I started this walking group, and with the premise, though, that everyone who's in the walking group would lead the walk each week that we met, and they would take us to a place that was important to them. And that developed into this senior-led walking tour, which we called the project was called Moving Stories, and it was a great way to finally go on a tour of the neighborhood, but through the expert eyes of the people who had lived there the longest. And they took us to places like a synagogue that became a laundromat, or um, a story of a woman who taught kung fu in Madison Street, in this little flower park. And these stories became part of this walking tour, which developed into a live tour, which we gave during a festival that the New Museum, it was called Idea City Festival, and the theme was invisible. So of course, my neighbors, being older, sometimes can be invisible to society. So putting them out there and leading this tour for this major public festival was awesome. And we also did photo walks, and took photos together of our walks, and then created these sort of maps with stories and the photos that we made together. And we made these short documentaries about important places in the neighborhood. And this really, these early projects really show how I use the street. And yeah, it's like, the urban space is the maps, and we create our own ways to find stories, with embedded in the places that we live. one early aspect of my work I understood was that movement triggers memory. So in a lot of these projects, a lot of my work, there's performance and walking and dancing and some aspect of movement. And so this is what propels also the stories that come out and make the projects really rich and fun to to observe, but also to participate. You get involved in your local community and you realize that the trees are part of that community, and the New York City Parks has these street care volunteer teams that come seasonally, a few times to help you learn how to take care of the trees. And so I got really involved in doing this. I also was a member of I am a member of the Mithinda Kalunga Community Garden. And this, of course, has a senior center attached to it. And a lot of the members happen to be older, but it's an intergenerational garden. And they have spaces for children and adults. And, there's a homeless population and, issues dealing with hunger and drugs. And so all of this is, part of where I live. And so there's also a tree, a very big tree in this garden that has caused a little tension in the garden because it's been wrapped with a invasive vine that threatens the canopy of the garden. Um, but it's also a place where all the birds, flock to during their migration, and there's a lot of critters and this vine has taken over so that this London plane tree, actually its foliage is predominantly the foliage from the vine. And so there's a risk, right, that the tree can die and fall. But it's also this place, has a symbiotic relationship, and it's like been dubbed the tree hotel because of all the birds and the critters that nest and eat in there. So this really brought all of these communities together, I guess, and understanding our relationship with our environment is part of understanding how we take care of ourselves too. We need the trees for flood protection and sewage mitigation, and we need them for clean, to filter our air and to cool our streets and to provide shade. And trees also need us to take care of them. They also can be isolated and need socialization, which is something that, they have a lot in common with my neighbors. So I also started to participate in this residency with the Urban Field Station, which is sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service. So we're, dealing with the urban forest, and all of this, came together, a series of performances and experimental ways to, connect and gather with the trees is what my latest work has been about. We did a project called Sounds for the Tree Hotel, where we created a concert for the trees. The humans played music for the trees. And then we did another project called Tree Loving Care, where a group actually, really led by CareLab, a lot of students and just people that we called out to participate. My colleague from the Urban Field Station came and participated with her daughter, and we we moved and danced, picking up trash and embodying tree movement, and really wanting to highlight the plight and the need to love and protect and care for the trees. This was on 14th Street, and there was, quite a bit of, those trees are very separate in their what we call the pits that they're in the sidewalk. So, and then we were just performing for the public along 14th Street, which is a mix of tourists and commuters and students, and um, it's a great intersection of New York life. This has also brought me to a project that is still speculative. I've made a little prototype, but it's called Tree Rings. The idea is that we are creating a marriage ceremony between trees and humans, and where we're exchanging actual rings in a I would say a performative sculptural participatory project. So the ceremony, of course, how do we put rings on the trees? So just designing and building these large rings that can interconnect at the base of the tree. One of the things about taking care of trees is after picking up all the garbage around it and aerating the soil, because it gets compacted in the urban setting. Then you put down mulch, and you're supposed to leave a ring around the base of the tree. The mulch shouldn't touch the bark because it can rot it. So the idea of the ring is it also is facilitating it, protecting the tree and creating that ring, but in a sculptural form. You need to be invited. You need to be. You need to build trust. You need to have relationships with the community you're working with. And I think understanding it's not just you. It's not a one-way street of care. It's a mutual care, and you don't want to infantilize people. And you gain as much from people's stories and experiences as you bring as well. So I think understanding that it's mutual care. It's just about building that relationship, and usually it's about asking questions and getting to know somebody. And so a lot of the work that I do, the projects that I do, they start with a question. These questions are, I'm curious, and when you lead with curiosity, and that brings out the these stories that really help you connect and really facilitate mutual care. I think my advice to educators is to practice listening, and attentive, active listening is a great skill to have when you're an educator, and yeah, and treat these conversations as mutual exchanges. I live in an intergenerational community and participate in this work, so people aren't siloed into these categories. I think my practice is also, I do concentrate a lot on my local, but the work of collective art making certainly goes with me wherever I travel. And I've had some great experiences doing and sharing collective care practices in Central Asia and in parts of Asia and Africa and Europe and wherever I travel to. So I think that we all need to also understand that making change can happen right where you live, but also as an educator and an artist, I believe that the ideas and the practices can extend to the rest of the country, to the world. So I hope to do more of that as well.